live and 3, 2, go.
Good morning, Daily Huddlers. Tara, I have a question for you. We are almost to April, and I'm already feeling it. Do you know why people are always so tired in April?
The rain?
I know it's not the rain, it's not the pollen. It's because they just finished a march.
I love it. I love it.
Yep. March gently. We won't be tired in April. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Huddle on Wednesdays, where we talk about everything relationships and communication. I'm here with my dear friend and co-host, Tara. And before we get started, I want to ask a few questions. Sorrel, I would like to know, how are you and who you're going to hug today?
I am the way I say I am, Kathryn. And today I am loving, compassionate, fierce. And I'm going to hug my grandson.
Ooh, that sounds yummy. Thank you, Sorrel. I am going to ask, let's see, Tom, where are you and what are you grateful for today?
Well, Kathryn, I am right here, present. And I am grateful for the opportunity to have this time to reflect and learn and grow.
Nice. Thank you, Tom. So we're here and now. And Chase, I would like to know what time it is. You're on the move, but you still have to know what time it is.
On the move, on the move. The time is right now. It's such a beautiful right now. I'm just bathing and marinating in it. The time is right now.
That's right. Thank you so much. We're here, we're present now, we're grateful, and we are the way we say we are. And now we're going to dive into a question that's near and dear to both Tara and I. This is one of Tara's 6 strategies of joy that we've been going over the last several weeks. And the question is, how can vulnerability elevate joy? Tara, take us away. How can vulnerability elevate joy?
Well, it can elevate joy in 3 clear ways, in my opinion. And I'd like to take you all back a few weeks ago before we dive in. It was about 3 weeks ago. I was asked to give a talk, and the ask was that I share my story as a woman and a professional, to share my story. And so I was not going to lean into effective communication strategies and talk to the brain strategies. I was really going to lean into telling the stories that decorate my journey of life. And I invited a good friend to come with me. And she sat in the back of the room, and she was a little bit of a kind of a shining light for me. There was about 50 women there, and I'd start to tell my story. And as I lean into different stories that decorate my journey, I see something on the face of the audience members. And that is a look that, if anyone's listening to this and they can't see, it's these eyes that turn wide open and their head tilts, and it looks and feels to me like pity. And that makes me very uncomfortable. And it has for most of my life. And when the audience looks at me like that and has these tears in their eyes and they tilt their head, what do? I lean into that science. And I take them out of the story and I tell them all the reasons why we do what we do and the way we feel. And I feel credible and I feel like an expert when I'm in that space. And at the end of the talk, people came up to me and they thanked me and they asked how I was able to be so vulnerable and that they were inspired. And I was feeling really good. And my friend said, "Great job." And later I said, I really could use some feedback. I want to get better. And a few hours later, we jumped on the phone and she said, you need to trust yourself more. She said, you take us into these stories and then you jerk us out of it with this science that causes people to glaze over. Maybe a little bit of the science, Tara, but keep us in the story. So that didn't set well with me. I was grateful for the feedback, but I thought, I don't really know. I think people, they don't just want some lady telling her story. They want the science. They want the proof. So a few days later, I called a really good friend who is the biggest Tara fan ever, always like my champion. And I told her what the friend had said about my talks. And I said, what do you think? And she said, totally agree with her. Shit. She said, 100%. She said, the science is kind of interesting, but I'm always waiting for you to get back to the story. Called one more friend, a very, very effective speaker, as a matter of fact, and someone I help with her talks. And I told her what my friend said about less science. And she said, Tara, you took the science out of my last speech because you said it took me out of the story. And why can't you do that for yourself? And here's where I'm going with this story, y'all. I thought about it for a moment and I said, because it makes me feel naked. It makes me feel vulnerable. It's scary. And I learned that those are the moments when we have the opportunity to elevate joy. Because when we are vulnerable and we allow ourselves to be seen, we build connection. And we are hardwired for connection. And I'm not even going to tell you the science of why. We are hardwired for connection. So I have some other points around joy, but I wanted to share this story because it's recent. I don't have vulnerability all figured out. I know the importance of it. I also learned something else that day. Some friends will always tell you what you want to hear. They're going to always be your champion. And some don't have the ability to ever champion you. And every once in a while, you'll find that friend who celebrates you when you've earned it and celebrates you and tells you how much that you've meant to them. They also have the courage and the strength and the courage of vulnerability to tell you what you need to hear. And when you find a friend like that, you hold on to them. And for me, that friend and the friend that was sitting in the audience that day is Kathryn. So I want to give her a thank you and see what she has to say about vulnerability and joy.
Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry on the screen. That's not fair. Well, Tara, thank you for saying that. We had a conversation just a couple of days ago about why is being present so hard? Do you ever feel like that? Like you're just super present? Sometimes it's easy, but for me, sometimes it's hard. And for me, it's the vulnerability. Being present with another human being does make you feel naked and it's hard. And so when you're standing in the front that way and telling your story, I get it. Because for me, I call them saboteurs. They go off and they go, nobody wants to hear all this about you. You're just talking about yourself. It's the voice that like is designed to keep us safe and keep us down. Like nobody, now you're doing it wrong. Why are you doing that? And, and it's like that constant chatter. And it's to quiet that voice and to just lean into, because that's what I saw for you. It's like, gosh, I think that's what we're all wanting more from each other, is just to trust ourselves more, to lean in and just be more ourselves. I really do think that. I keep thinking of that saying, and I don't know who said it, so I'll have to look it up and quote it later, or give credit later, but it's like we're all here just walking each other home.
Yes, I love that.
And so why not be honest and let you know what I think, and why not be present? And, I love how you've separated out like joy and pleasure, because being vulnerable doesn't bring me pleasure as the way you describe it and define it. But it does create those memories and brings me joy. This past weekend, my oldest son was sick. He had the stomach bug, Michael, and he's the one, speaks with a device. So he speaks a little different than you and I. And so he was miserable. And all he wanted, as usual, but more so that day, was for me to be present with him. He actually, I sat on the floor with him. He took his hand and put it on my chest to push me back to lay down so he could lay on my chest. And that's all he wanted. And I did that. I didn't pick up a phone. I literally just was with him for hours and just petted his arm and all of that. But I realized, wow, this is really vulnerable. We weren't even talking, but just to be and not get to, oh boy, did I want to pick up my phone. I was like, oh my God, this is what Tara's talking about. I am so addicted. I just like every now and again, my hand almost just like itched to pick something up or do something different. And instead, I was just present. It was really eye-opening. I can't tell you how infrequently I do that and don't pick up, get distracted, get on the computer, pick up my phone, go get something to eat, grab a glass of wine, get your bag of popcorn, whatever. So anyway, so I just wanted to open up that part of it too, because what you're talking about is standing in front of a group of people and being vulnerable and how that can elevate your joy. And then I'm talking about being present with another person and how that can elevate my joy. I mean, I'll never forget that time of him being sick and just being with him.
And you going through the hard thing.
Say that again? That I was going through the hard thing?
That it was hard for you to just do nothing and just be.
Yeah. And you and I talked after that. I'm like, why is that? Because to me, I think that is our natural state. If you look at other animals in the animal kingdom, I mean, it seems like it should be that should be our natural state.
Well,
to just be with one another, but yet we've learned so many things that take us out of that.
Here's what I suspect of why it is so hard. Even when you weren't trying to expose yourself or communicate authentically, just to lay there. And it goes back, Kathryn, to the looks on those people's faces in that audience, which I've seen so many times during presentations. Thanks to you, I see it differently. I've always seen it as pity. And now I think I know what it is. It's empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerability invites empathy. And when you were laying there with your son and not allowing yourself to be distracted, it's just like me sitting in Caroline's suffering. You absorb it. That's empathy. Mm-hmm. That's a form of love. And if you didn't have a distraction, you had to try to feel what this poor young man was feeling. And he couldn't express it. He couldn't expose it. He couldn't even warn you when he was about to be sick. He just knew it was coming. And so vulnerability invites empathy, which takes courage.
Mm-hmm. It does. And it's something that we can offer to other people too, because I think, what do we take from this? How do we implement this, bring it into our own lives? And it's a way in which when we're sitting with someone else, I often hear like, wow, you're such a good listener. And I'm like, actually, I think I'm just a listener. You know what I mean? People don't get heard very much, but to sit and be present with another person and hear and empathize creates such a connection. People remember that.
It does. It creates connection, and it all, I so many times, and I'm trying still really hard not to do this, but I think I've given credit to the fact that I'm able to tap into joy in even the most difficult times in life. I've given a lot of credit to my studies, because I want proof. I want to know why. I want to make sure that, but at the end of the day, it's more about, that's why I'm called to continue to tell stories. It's more about sharing that joy. And we didn't save this one for last, but I think it is vulnerability is the birthplace of joy. ... Brene Brown, for 3 reasons to me. And I would be remiss if I didn't share those. And we've already talked about the first one, that's connection. We are hardwired for that. And we can't truly connect without trust. And that means being open and honest, not sharing secrets, but sharing what feels uncomfortable or what makes us feel insecure or less than flawless and perfect. It also invites something that definitely elevates joy, and that's creativity. And I like to equate this to a business place. If you're not in a safe culture, in a safe setting, you shut creativity down, which kills innovation. And I hear this from my daughter sometimes in her workspace. She has ideas and some leadership mind comes in and shuts it down and says it's not a good idea. And that's the opposite of being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're creative, that definitely brings us joy. And the last one is something that I know that you and I both can relate to, is when we're vulnerable and we don't try to put up an armor and be somebody that we're not and seem like we have it all together, we are free. There's nothing more joyful than connection and freedom.
That is so true.
All three forms of joy: creativity, connection, and freedom.
I love that. You're so right. Because we're not so tied up in our minds thinking about like the image I'm trying to create, even if it's subconscious, you know, or how I'm supposed to be or whatever, we're able to just be ourselves, you know. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think it is about standing up there and feeling like you have to be credible by giving science? Because that struck me as when you told me that odd, honestly, because you're so confident and so put together. And I mean, I believe in you wholeheartedly. What is it that makes you feel you need some sort of validation through knowing?
Thank you for these flipping hard questions, Kathryn.
You're welcome.
Decline.
What I'm here for. Nope.
I know why. I deep down, I know why I feel like I need the science, because most of my life, I've not been detail oriented. I've not been spreadsheet minded, and I've been slapped down for that. I've been told by people in the corporate world, you know, you work on the spreadsheet, you know, you got to be more grounded, you got to be more, you know, flatlined. And I'm just not made that way. I'm highly emotional. I'm super intense, super passionate. And I have an insecurity that I come over as less than credible. That's the most vulnerable answer.
I would love to ask this group if they think you're less than credible, if you come across that way. Sorrel, do you think she comes across as less than credible when she tells her stories?
I think she comes across and gives the world a gift that only stories can give. You know, I'm sitting here and something's just bursting over here. So thank you for this conversation. And Tara, you said in a very credible way, and I'm going to steal that phrase and use it all over the place, vulnerability invites empathy. And one of the concepts I've been playing with for myself is that perhaps when I'm less than confident in my speaking, and perhaps when you're less than confident in your speaking, it's born out of my thinking that I'm separate from you. So I've been exploring this thing called the collective. And what if the collective has all knowledge? What if the collective has all things? Which means, wow, the very thing I'm researching to know, I already know. The very thing I'm looking to prove that I know, I already know, and everybody knows. And that in the collective, though we share all knowledge, though we share all things, the only thing we can't share is our experience of life. And when I stand up and share a story, not only does it invite empathy and love, it actually makes the collective whole. That is the only thing. I mean, that's the thing that's right here with me, right? Like sharing a story, sharing my experience is the only thing that makes the collective whole. I've never seen that before.
Thank y'all for this therapy session. Come out. I need some hits of pleasure.
Let's drink some booze.
Wow, that is so beautiful, Sorrel, what you just said, because for me, it frees us all up from having to do more, be more, know more, and nobody can have our experience. It's our job to have our own experience and share it. It's just like my body relaxes. That's easy. That's like, we can do that.
And it's whatever the experience is. It's almost as if the collective is just thirsting for that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm here having this experience. Gosh, I wonder what it's like to be hungry. I wonder what it's like to be traumatized. I wonder what it's like to be, wow, all of it.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what it's like to be Tara.
Yeah.
So, right. And so when you say that, I'm like, Tara, that's the gift you give when you tell the story. It's so true. It resonates for me. It's so true that rings true that Tara makes the group whole. And as I'm thinking of it, it is a whole collective, but even in that moment, as she's telling the story to whomever she's telling, it makes them whole. It makes it whole.
Yeah. And you know, last thing, when they open their eyes wide, tilt their heads, they're actually saying, oh my God, look at me. Yeah.
Right. And I've always seen it as pity. Always.
Mm-mm.
Like this poor woman.
By the way, Tara, I'm not giving you advice, coaching you. I'm just soaking it in, okay?
Yeah. And I see Tom, we're going to get to him in a second, but I do want to tell you that Chase typed in too, Tara is so credible, so authentic, so far from not credible. So just hear that in the feedback of how we show up. I think we need to know that because that little saboteur in our brain will. So Tom, you had a comment or a question.
Yeah, two things real quick. And Chase hit this pretty directly. The question of credibility, if you put yourself out there and tell a story and then don't lean on others to back you up, there's a level of courage behind that. I know authenticity is another very good way to say that, but there's vulnerability in that, and it's powerful. And to put yourself out there, it's your experience and you're sharing it. Yeah. So Tara, back to your question of, am I credible? Yeah, you're incredibly credible. Yeah, and you don't have to lean on the other. If the conversation goes there, you could certainly bring that up and just, give it a little bit more foundation. But yeah, incredibly credible.
And my question to you, Tara, is what would happen if you were credible, just as you are?
So this is becoming a therapy session.
It isn't. We're illuminating it for everyone. It's about you. And thank you for being the one on stage.
Okay. All right.
But this is for everyone. I have my own version. We all have our own versions of this. You're just being the brave one to take the brunt of it right now.
What was the question? What if I thought I was credible?
Yeah, like what would happen? I just wonder what becomes possible. Because for me, when my saboteurs kick up and they've got that thing that I'm like, oh no, not that. I can't be that. I'm afraid I'm that. And I go, what happens if I am the other thing that I'm afraid I am, like credible or beautiful or smart or dynamic or whatever it is that my mind is telling me I'm not? What's possible for you if you're credible just as you are? And you can bring the science. You don't have to not have the science, but I'm just curious. What happens if you're credible?
Well, I guess I'd be more of my true self because I'm not a science-minded person. I'm a storyteller.
Hey, we are done here. Thanks for coming today. Bye-bye. No, I'm kidding.
So I see that Cherie wants to say something, but I just have to tell y'all this because it's kind of funny. As many of you know, I'm writing a memoir, and I'm in the part where I meet Mike, who is now my husband. And I'm in my brain, and there's a line in there that says, don't worry about being nervous or what he's going to think of you, because I know that no man would love a woman whose life rides like an ATV in the Black Hills of South Dakota. So y'all ask, what would it be like to be Tara? I ride like an ATV in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and I'm still lovable. So thank you for this therapy session, Daily Huddle. And with that,
are lovable because of that. I love it. Cherie.
It's a great description. I might have to use it. It's really awesome. I wanted to ask if there's any fear that comes up when you look into the audience and see folks, specifically any fear of being seen.
Yes. I think, thank you for asking me that, because you're making me think about it. I want to be seen. I want to share authentically. The last thing I would ever want to do is be inauthentic. And Kathryn heard me say it so often I'm afraid that I could make the talk too emotional, which would cause people to pull back. And now I'm going to give my own advice to myself. I say this to other people, and I have to remind myself this: what I have to share is not for everybody. But if I hold back, then it's going to be absolutely beautiful to nobody. So I think I have to let, as I like to say, my freak flag fly and be fully Tara. And some people will fall in love with that, and some people will be turned off. And I got to be willing to take that risk. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Cherie. Chase.
It's another one of those that could last another hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it is. No, what I wanted to say is there's so many things I want to talk about, but I can only talk about one because I let all of them go by already, but that's okay. You know, when it can only be too emotional or too clinical or too deep or too empathetic when we find ourselves comparing outside of ourselves. What's the meter? Where's the meter? Where's the book that says, talk about this, but don't go too far? Where's the meter that says, I'm looking at you, and if I look at you, there's nothing. It's all within us. We are creating all of the boundaries, all of them. So it's like you just said, I was talking and I said, I got to be careful not to say too much. You know, as a singer, when I look out into the audience, I see a myriad of experiences happening in front of me, but I mostly see joy that the music is going into the person's soul, right? And every now and then I'll catch a look or something, but I'm interpreting that. There's no sign on someone's face that says, you're not a good singer, bro. There's nothing there. It's just, it's all imaginary, all of it. And when you walk in your authenticity, which I know you do, Tara, because I watch you every day, just about, you, with all the stuff you have going on in your life and all the difficult moments that you've shared with us, you didn't have to share any of that stuff. And I think that it's the opposite of what you're saying. I think you're sharing these moments that are so sensitive and so difficult in your life. And it actually is illuminating other people to go, maybe I should talk about my stuff. Maybe that'll make me feel better. That's what I really feel about that. Because you don't have to talk. Yeah, I don't think anything but that. You ever talk to somebody and they say, oh my God, I thought I was the only person. Thank you for saying that. I feel so much better now. That happens to me all the time. Like, Chase, you always talk about this stuff. And I'm like, God, he knows me. I'm like, but I don't. I'm just unpacking some stuff that's a little bit difficult sometimes to people. And, you know, I'm a very emotional person, very emotional. I've cried after the call, just making a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for?
Confession.
Yes, confession. And there are things that have hit me. As a matter of fact, one time I cried on the call and I don't think anyone saw it. And I was like, oh, hold together. Hold together. Okay, we're out of it. Like that. So I just think you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You're going the path you're supposed to be on. And all of us are bringing pieces to this call that create a whole collective consciousness that is so ridiculously awesome. I don't know why there's not 200 people on this call. And with that, I'm out. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chase.
Oh, thank you.
I think what I love about what you said is what I was also trying to say to you, Tara, is like, we're all having this experience. Like you were sort of took the brunt of it today. You're the face of it today, but we're all going, yeah, me too. In whatever way we relate. And so it's brave to be the one to stand out and go, this is my experience. Can anyone relate? So thanks for being vulnerable today.
Yes, it was vulnerable for me today. More than ever. I was raised by a woman who always said, ask more than you talk. Make sure you listen to other people. Don't, make sure that you're not turning the light back always on yourself. And I've always been super sensitive to being a listener and a question asker. And today, this call, I hope it inspired other people, but it has affected me. And I feel like it was a lot about me, which made me quite uncomfortable. So thank you for that discomfort. And thank you for the 7 tenets. Thank you all for the love that I felt today. It was super powerful. And I feel it all through my body. And thank you for giving. Thank you for giving from your hearts and your souls and your wisdom. And with that, I'll remind us of some other ones. Thank you. Oh, Kathryn, thank you for the laughter, because you always give that to me. Everyone does.
Yes.
And three strategies for joy for sure, but let's not forget to eat plants and get our sleep and stress less. And of course, do what Chase is doing right now. Move that body. I love you all. We love you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
day,
you.
everyone.
Thank you so much, Tara.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.